Hello. For everyone who doesn't know me, I'm Khalid Bryan, broker and owner of the investment property gurus. I'm going to show you guys how I fill out a listing agreement for both sales and rentals. The important thing is I am not an attorney, so I can't interpret this contract for you. My license only allows me to fill in the blank on here, as does yours. So I'm literally just going to show you how I specifically fill out a listing agreement for both a sale and a purchase, and how you can too. There are more advanced classes where they'll actually break down each paragraph. But again, those classes are traditionally taught by attorneys because the contract was written by an attorney, and our license, again, does not allow us to interpret legal jargon. So if you give this to a client, you can explain it to the best of your abilities, but if they actually can interpret something, I highly advise you let them know that they have every right to go ahead and consult with their attorney and have their attorney look over this contract before they sign it. Ooh, choked on myself. Okay, so without further ado, let me just show you where I found them before I get into it. So on Form Simplicity, we all know how to get to Form Simplicity. If you don't, feel free to reach out to me and ask me privately, and I'll show you one-on-one. So what you're looking for is, if you're selling something, right here, exclusive right of sale listing agreement for transaction broker. If you look, there's a few other exclusive right of sale listing agreements, but we want the one for a transaction brokerage because we are transaction brokers. This allows us to get both sides of the deal without having much fun. If it's a rental, you want this one right here, exclusive right to lease agreement. On Form Simplicity, here is where you'll find either agreement depending on which one you're looking for. If you're selling something, you want this one. If you're renting something, you want this one. So here it is, the exclusive right of sale listing agreement. So right here, the top line is where I put the seller's name. If there's more than one seller, you definitely always want to make sure all sellers are going to be present whenever you decide to have them fill out and sign this agreement. The way I do this is, before going to the listing presentation, I just ask to be clear, is everyone going to be there? On the tax roll, you'll see the seller's name, and just make sure, let's just say in this case, it's Stephen and Stacy. You're talking to Stacy on the phone and you say, I'm going to come by Friday at 8. Just make sure, by the way, is Steven going to be there too? Because if one or the other isn't there, there's no way you're going to have to execute a listing agreement. You can probably have one sign it and leave it and probably come back and pick it up, but your chances are kind of heightened that the other party may not sign this agreement. So before you waste your time and go sit there and do a full listing presentation, make sure all registered owners are present. As far as the date, here's where you put the listing start date, and this is the listing expiration date. If you're doing a 1-year agreement for any contract, make sure that the end date is 1 day before the start date, but the following year. So just to kind of clarify that, if you see here, this one starts January 1st, 2021. That day already happened yet, but just stay with me. If it starts January 1st, 2021, it has to end the day before the following year. So in our case, it's going to end December 31st, 2021. It can't end January 1st, 2022, because that's going to be 366 days. We can't do any contract over 1 year by law. You need an attorney for that. We're not attorneys, so we can't bind anyone to that. The street address right here, that's plain and simple. Make sure you have the full street with the city, state, and zip code. Legal description, you just copy and paste it from tax roll. Personal property, including appliances. This is everything that's in the property that's going to actually convey to the new buyer. So I just reiterate here just to make sure that the seller understands what they're going to be giving up when they sell this property. More often than not, it's these things or whatever else you know that they're including, whether it's a window unit AC, a dishwasher, a garbage disposal, everything that you know is standing in the property. I just listed here just for the sake of consistency, or I'm not going to try to find a synonym. Okay, occupancy. I only checked off is just for example purposes. So whether the property is rented out or not, you check it off here. If there is a tenant in there, you check it off, and then you just put the date where the tenant should be out by, or when the lease expires. This is helpful because if you're trying to, let's just say you want to sell to a FHA buyer, FHA has a requirement where the buyer has to move into the property, if I'm not mistaken, within 90 days of purchase. So if the lease expiration date is 180 days away from the projected closing date, you know you cannot do FHA on this property. They'll deny it when they see the lease expiration date. So that's why you need to know here. So you and the seller will all be on the same page on when this tenant is projected to be out, so you can help teach your buyer or educate your buyer on the actual terms and layout of the property. purchase price, this is whatever price you and the seller agreed to. This isn't to say you have to sell it at this price. It's just saying this is the price you guys are agreeing to market it and put it on the MLS app. Financing terms, you're gonna again go through this with the seller. In more cases than not, you're gonna just accept almost all financing options unless you know FHA or VA may be an issue, or if you think you can't get financing at all and you're just gonna be cash only. But this is just where you check off what you and the seller are willing to consider. This isn't to say you have to take it. Let's just say you say I'm willing to consider VA or FHA financing, knowing that they have a pretty strenuous appraisal and inspection process. You can very well get a buyer, try that loan, and it's denied, and it won't be an issue on you if you, in all good intentions, believe it could have gone through. But this is where it's kind of important to do your due diligence, because if you know an association, say, has a 20% minimum down payment, there's no way you can do an FHA or VA, because FHA has a 3.5% down payment and VA has it's 100% financing, so there is no down payment. Unless you ask the buyer if they have this 20% to meet that requirement, you already know out the gate you can't do FHA or VA. I left seller financing blank, and I tend to always leave seller financing blank because in this market, it shouldn't be hard, especially if you're priced right, to just go out and sell it fair and clear, and the seller shouldn't have to wait that long for the finances. If you do, then this is where you're going to fill it in. Stuff like this, I would probably bring in an attorney, just because this is a big process. You're talking about probably a 10+ year contract you're putting together with mortgages, and it's just a lot. Have an attorney do that. Don't try to do a seller financing deal on your own. So I leave that blank just so the seller is clear that they're not obligated to do any seller financing. They're welcome to turn away any offer that comes with seller financing. Seller expenses, I leave this blank just because I don't want, the seller's not really obligated to anything. If we get an offer and the offer says we want the seller to pay for X, X, and X, we can say no. So I don't obligate the seller to pay for anything. And if you notice on the bottom page of each page in the listing agreement and probably every contract, there's an initial spot. Make sure all registered sellers initial there. If there's more than 2, then it's fine. Just have them initial like anywhere on here, but just make sure they initial. All right. How do I get to the next page here? Whoa, what's going on here? Okay, that's okay. I can figure this out. All right, so over here on the left side of this page where it says broker authority, this is basically saying what we as the listing agents are authorized to do. Feel free to interject if this is hard to see, because I wasn't prepared for it to split up like this. Let's see if I can undo this. No, I can't. Sorry. All right, so let me try to squeeze in and read this so I can kind of break down what we're looking at here. Okay, so this is what we're saying the broker is obligated to do. So if you kind of just breeze through this, this is where they're saying we're authorized to market it online. We can do signs, flyers, we can send out emails, whatever it is we want to do. This just kind of outlines what they can expect us to do with their property, because if they have an interjection, let's just say they say, I want this sale to be done private. Now is the time to tell us, because we're telling you how we're going to blast this property out. We're going to put the address out there. We're not going to put the seller's name, but if someone knows this house, they're going to see it for sale the way we're going to market it. Right here, place the appropriate signs. If they don't want to sign, then they'd have to let us know so we can check it off. The reason I do not check off these boxes right here, if you look at it, this says display the property on the internet except the street address. More often than not, I do want the street address on the all marketing materials, just so you can see where the property is, because you'll be surprised how many people see a house, love the house, and just when they find out the address, they find out it's not in the area that they want to be in. So I don't like to hide that. Here's the address up front, so you can tell me if this area is good or not. You can even do a drive-by before we do the actual showing and see if it's for you. So if I'm hiding the address, there's no way they can do that. And the other one, this one says seller does not authorize broker to display the property on the MLS. That's the first thing I'm gonna do, so I'm not gonna check that off. And under it just they have to initial off that they understand if I can't put it on the MLS, it's gonna be harder for me to sell it. I can't market it. It's just gonna take me a longer time, so we have to be on the same page there. All right. I checked this off so it's clear that I'm gonna use a lockbox on the property to show it. And it also explains to them that if something happens to this lockbox or with this lockbox, it's not my responsibility, nor any of my agents, nor any member of the Miami Board of Realtors. I know that I'm the one that put it on here, and I'm kind of, doing every precaution to protect this property. But by checking this off, you understand the risk of letting me show this property on a lockbox, and you are welcome to say no. You're welcome to forbid it, but I'm just letting you know this is the most consistent and efficient way for me to do it. And if you want to take extra precautions to protect the property, I always suggest they just put up some security cameras. All you need is a Wi-Fi connection, and I think some Wyze cams on Amazon, they're like $30 a piece. So that's probably the easiest way to just protect it. Or just put a Ring doorbell. That's helpful. Okay, so these boxes right here. Seller does not authorize an automated estimate, and seller does not authorize third parties to comment. Some virtual office, you see the paragraph here, it says virtual office website. Some virtual office websites, what they do is they'll just automatically populate the property and they'll put, here's the list price, but here's what we think it's worth. It's kind of like a estimate. They'll also have some reviews. This neighborhood, blah, 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 blah. They'll have bloggers. I never allow that because I can't control what these people are going to say or think about my listing. So if I can cut some negative activity out, I'm going to do so. Granted, this does not control Zillow and their estimates, but some websites, when they syndicate with MLS, when you check off that this is not allowed by the seller, it just naturally, they'll only show you the address and the fact. They won't show any subjective information put out by third parties. Seller obligations. This is a two-way contract. So the same way we as brokers and listing agents have obligations for this property, the seller has to do their part to help us out. So some of their obligations, I'm not going to read it word for word because again, I can't interpret this for you, but it just kind of covers, you can't turn down someone just because of their race, sex, the Fair Housing Act. You can't discriminate. If you're gonna deny someone who's a service member, meaning they were in the military or something, you need that in writing. You need to know why they were denied because you can't just deny them for a subjective reason. If they meet the qualifications, why are we turning them down? All right, so we're over here now. We're at number 8, compensation. This is where we lock in our commission. So right here, seller will compensate broker. Okay, just to stop myself, what we're doing here is we're just scrolling through this listing agreement looking for fill in the blank spot. And I'm showing you what to put where. So right here, this 6%, this is what the commission is going to be on this property. It can be any number you agree to with the seller. 6% is just the average. But if you get that seller to agree to 7%, 8%, maybe 5%, you just put whatever it is you agree to right here. This first commission figure is the total commission to be split between you and the buyer's agent. And as you know, the investment property gurus, we have a $3.95 transaction fee. So this is where I add it. So it's a 6% commission plus a $3.95 transaction fee. Just the same if it's an option to purchase, meaning the buyer says, look, here's money. I want you to hold this property for me and I'll come back in, let's say, October. I want the right to come back in October and buy this property. Well, this is just me personally saying this. I want 6% of whatever amount they gave you for that option. And then if and when we close in October, you give me the rest of my commission off the rest of the sale. You can put whatever percentage you agree to. It's just obviously, I feel like asking for 50% of their their option amount is just kind of excessive. I just naturally have just always put 6%. Sky's the limit, really. If we rent the property out, I want 1 month's rent. It'll say a percentage of the gross or a percentage of first month's rent, but I just put 1 month's rent just to be clear, because if the first month's rent is prorated, that has nothing to do with me. I want my full commission. If there's a co-agent, they're going to get their half a month. So I don't want my commission to be prorated based on when the tenant moves in. So it's 1 month's rent no matter when they do. I don't care how long. If it's a short-term lease, then you can do like a percentage of the gross. But I just personally, I like to do 1 month's rent no matter what. This right here, this is saying, let's just say this contract gets terminated or it expires. So this 90 days is saying if after the termination of this agreement, if within 90 days, anyone that came or inquired or that I showed this property to before it expires comes back and buys it, you still owe me my commission. If it happens after this 90 days, they don't owe you anything. Retained deposit. If we go after a buyer's commission, so let's just say I'm the listing agent, the buyer defaults on the contract, and they have a $5,000 escrow deposit. I'll do my part to initiate with the title company, whoever's holding escrow. We're at disagreement. We'll start a dispute, and whenever the dispute is ended, if we win anything, whether it be the whole deposit or part of the deposit, whatever you, the seller, get, you're gonna split that with me, the investment property guru. So what that means for you is if you did your part, you put that property under contract, the buyer for whatever reason flaked on it, you still did your part. So I feel like you're still owed a commission. So if it falls through and the seller gets a portion of that commission, you get half of it. But in the purchase contract, if there is a co-agent, if the seller gets a part of escrow and you, the listing agent, gets half of it, the buyer's agent has to get half of your half. So whatever you get, you split evenly with the buyer's agent. The reason that happens is because the buyer's agent didn't do anything either. It's the buyer that forfeited the contract. You did your part, you listed it. The buyer's agent did their part. They bought their buyer over. They did the contract. They did it. So whatever money goes around, everyone wins, but the buyer in that case. Odd but true. Well, okay, right here, compensation of sub-agent. So you remember up here, our commission is 6%. Down here, we're splitting it 3% with a co-agent. And you're wondering why it's here 3 times. It's because one of them is going to be a single agent. One of them is a transaction broker. And the third one is if they have no agency relationship. And they just met, showed them the house, did a contract. Right here, conditional termination. I personally have never charged a termination fee. When I get a listing agreement signed, one of the things I pitch them on that gets it signed is you can change your mind and cancel this contract at any time, and I won't charge you anything. I do take a loss because oftentimes I do pay for the photos. I do spend time listing it, doing the research, probably showing it. But I feel like if you don't want to sell the property anymore, you want to fire me for whatever reason, I'm not in the business of kind of forcing people to work with me, so I let them go. You are welcome to charge a termination fee if you want, and whatever you can get them to agree to, honestly. If you want to charge them $500 for terminating, or if you, let's just say you spend $250 on getting photos and whatever marketing together, and you want to say, give me that back if you terminate, that's fine. But again, you have to get them to agree to it. I want to get the listing first, and we'll figure it out later. So I don't want an extra thing for me to argue with you about. So I leave it alone. Again, this is how I do. You're welcome to flex it however you want. Dispute resolution. This just says if for whatever reason, me and you, your listing agent and you, the seller, come to a disagreement, the first thing we're going to do is go into mediation. This just kind of says we're not going to go straight to calling our lawyers. We're going to figure it out step by step by the book, and everyone has the initial understanding. We're going to follow the steps to solve any problem. All right. How do we turn the page again? Look at that. Okay. And the last page, these are really short agreements, only 4 pages. This is just if you have any additional terms, like anything exotic you want to add to this agreement between you, the listing agent, and your seller. So let's just say part of your deal is you agree, look, I'll give you this listing, but you have to do 1 open house a week. This is where you're going to put that in. Listing agent and seller agree to, well, the investment property gurus and seller agree to host 1 open house per week, whatever. If you have some type of crazy commission structure, should property sell by X date, commission shall be whatever. Should property sell after X date, commission, whatever you side deal agree to, it goes right here in this agreement. After that, make sure both sellers sign, put their phone number, their address, their email, the date. You fill it out. I put agent signature so you know that this is where you sign. It says agent or broker. The date, the investment property gurus is the firm name always. This is your phone number and our office address. All right. Right here is just where you can just certify that you gave the seller a copy of this agreement, because remember, part of our company policy, when we go to a listing, we take both of them. If they e-sign it, you just click right here, email, that you emailed it over. As soon as they e-sign, they get a copy. If you're bringing it, just click off personal delivery. And again, the bottom of each page, even the signature page, has an initial field. All right, that's it for this one. So we got another one we're going to go over. All right. And while we're talking about the exclusive right to list agreement, you're going to have to add a seller's disclosure with every sale listing. So here's where you find it. You go on the Form Simplicity, go on the Florida Docs and the forms, and you see right here, there's 2 of them. So if it's a house or a townhouse, you want this one. Seller's property disclosure residential. This is a house, a townhouse, a duplex, a fourplex. This one is if it's a condo, only condos. Seller's property disclosure condominium. They're different because there's different things you're going to need to disclose. The condos are going to have a whole lot of things to disclose about the association. Let me just show you what are these things called? Seller's disclosure. So here it is. This is a blank seller's disclosure. it's gonna say in red that we're not allowed to touch it when you're on phone simplicity, but we can't fill out anything on here. All we do with the seller's disclosure is print it and give it to them. What I do sometimes is while I'm at the property for the listing agreement, I'll say, hey, here you guys go, fill this out. And in that time, I'll leave and I'll go either take pictures of the property or just do like a walk around, take notes. Just let them fill it out, or even say fill it out and send it back to me later. But just make sure they fill it out for every situation. The reason of this is, as you can see, it goes over everything. So they want to know if it's occupied. How is the roof? How's everything? If they don't know, they just click don't know. Um, have you ever had termites? Have you ever had a leak? Like everything they would know about the property or not know about the property is outlined on this seller's disclosure. All right. So exclusive right to lease agreement. Here it is. Same situation. Owner name. This is kind of different because let's just say if you're renting it, this owner is more likely going to be an LLC or a business. If it is a regular owner, you would just the same put the owner's name here. If there's two owners, you put one name and the other. The investment property rules is always going to be separate, obviously. Same situation with the listing start and end date. It has to end. If you're doing a year, it has to end the day before it started the following year. Average listing agreement time frame for me, I will do 6 months if I just don't want to have an argument or confusion. I'll do a year just so I can lock it in and make sure I have plenty of time to do it. This thing should not take a year to sell. I just like to have a year just so I can take my sweet time and you don't have a reason to fire me. If it's a complicated listing, like if you're listing a business, a large apartment complex, something in excess of say $1 million, you may need a year to sell that because the buyers for that aren't just everywhere. If it's something simple like a rental, maybe something for $400,000, $500,000, that's a pretty active market. So 6 months should be okay. But whatever you can get them to agree to, sky's the limit. Again, the address will be the full thing. Legal description, you get that from the tax roll. It'll also be on MLS. Personal property, including appliances, you already remember what to put there. List whatever appliances they're giving you. Occupancy. Again, remember how I showed you. If it's the tenant in there, it is occupied. Who's living there? The tenant, and the lease expires the end of February. As far as the rental rate and terms, this is when you guys agree. So here's how much we're going to list it for rent. You don't have to go home and well, not go home, but you're not required to rent it at 2,000. If you get an offer for 1,800 or 1,900 and they take it, great, you've done your job. This is just where you guys are clear. Here is our starting price we're going to ask for. Right here, you just list whatever utilities the owner says are included, whether they're included by the association or the owner of the actual property pays for themselves. You just fill it in here. These are just a guide. It's not going to always be these four things included. You're going to check with the owner. So this is going to be the security deposit. As broker, I personally don't like to hold anybody's money. Don't give it to me because then I got deeper wanting to check in on me, want to check. Just leave me alone. So I have the owner hold their own security deposit more often than not in a non-interest bearing account because it's one less thing to worry about and have to account for. If they do say we're gonna do an interest bearing account, you just have to fill it out here, and it has to be understood by both parties who gets that interest or if we split that interest. Just to knock out one less thing to go about over, I just keep it in a non-interest bearing account or advise them to keep it in a non-interest bearing account. Advanced rent, this is going to be the last. So let's just say, you know how they say first month, last month and security. Advanced rent is going to be that last month's rent. And the security deposit is right here. You'll notice they're each $2,000 because that's our listing price. I have first month, last month, and security as the same amount every time. Unless the seller says, look, I have this $800,000 chandelier in the house I need to protect, so I need an extra security deposit, or $2,000 not enough, I need a $10,000. Whatever they say, you can do. There's no rules for the numbers. This is just, again, how I do it. Pet deposit, I traditionally have them as non-refundable because once the pet's there, it's there, and once they leave, it's pretty much a consistent thing in what's gonna have to get fixed. There's usually a smell. You gotta repaint. They may see some scratches on the floor molding. So it's like, these little extra things are gonna come about. So I made the pet deposit non-refundable just to sweeten the deal for the landlord. You can also include pet rent if you wanted to. I don't include a credit report fee because I'm not personally running your credit. And again, the landlord is not paying it. The tenant pays that, so I leave that blank. association fee, if the property is in an association and there is an application fee for it, this is where you put it. I put 100 here because more often than not they are 100. But again, only if there's an association are you going to check this off. And as far as when the association approval is required, you can't apply for the association until you have an executed lease. So I write upon lease execution. Again, an attorney posting, I'm actually going to find an attorney to host this class better that can break down word for word this agreement, and they'll tell you specifically what to put and why. I just wanted to kind of get you guys started so you can, get going, get and listen. So that is where the money's at, I'm telling you. Same thing as the sale agreement. These are just some broker obligations. I'm going to put the property on the internet. I'm going to put a for rent sign. If they don't want a for rent sign, I'm not going to check this. Just so it's clear, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use the lockbox. I'm going to request a credit check. Just so you know I'm requesting it. It does say on owner or at owner's expense. But again, I don't charge this to the owner. The tenant pays it. I'm authorized to compensate sub-agents. This means if another agent comes in and brings the tenant, I'm authorized to split my commission in half with them and give it to them. I don't have to ask for special permission to cut these guys a check. The owner just flat out, they're going to get paid. Once I get an offer accepted, I don't like to be bounded to have to present any and everything that comes in. So I check this box off. This just says, once we enter a binding contract to rent this property, and someone sends me an offer after that, I don't have to tell you. I can just sit on it. If you ask, I'll say, oh yeah, we got some other offers, but it's okay. The reason I don't do that, let's just say we took an offer for $2,000 and next week someone came in with $2,100, that's gonna blow up this whole $2,000 deal. So I just ignore it. Or let's just say we have a deal at $2,000 and someone offers $1,750. I know you're not going to take that. We're already on a contract. I shouldn't be obligated to have to, keep going back and forth. So I could just tell them flat out, I'm sorry, we already rented it. If you want to send a backup, you can, and I will let you know if it comes back on the market. Okay, so I did not check off make final inspection at the end of the lease, at the conclusion of the lease, because I'm not managing this property. If I have a property management agreement, different story, but my job is just to rent it, get this lease filled out and signed, and move the tenant in. Once that's done, I'm free and clear. I don't care what happens at the end of the lease. That's between you and the landlord, the landlord and the tenant. Complete lease forms as permitted by law. Absolutely, I'm going to follow every law when filling out this form. I did not fill out the complete and sign lead-based paint certificate on behalf of the owner because I can't sign anything on behalf of the owner because I don't have a power of attorney, obviously. If I did have one, I click this off and say, I'm going to sign for him. And remember, the bottom of each page has an initial for us to make sure that they saw it. Okay, right here. This is the same as the previous agreement. Our advertising things we're going to do, and it just says unless the seller says you cannot. So unless limited to, and again, display the property on the internet except for the street address. I want the street address on there. I'm not going to check this. Owner does not authorize the broker to display the property on the internet. How am I going to sell it? It's going straight on the internet, so I'm not going to check that off. Again, if they say no to these, they have to initial understanding that makes this harder to sell. We covered this in the last one, but just to cover it again, the virtual office websites, they will put their own opinion on value and their own opinion on the property and community. I don't allow it if I can control it. Owner obligations, it just outlines again what the owner is required to do for us, how they can't turn people down based on certain factors. And I also require you give me a copy of the key to the unit. If the building has a separate key, like there's a gate or a door, I need a key to that. And I don't really need the mailbox, pool, or garage opener right now because number one, I can lose it. Someone that can show it can lose it. No one really needs to open the mailbox. So I have you hold it until we sell it, then give it to me, or just bring it to walkthrough. This is where I was telling you with the lockbox. You see how it says lockbox if utilized on behalf of the owner and release the working by, or I'm not going to try to read this right now, but it just says, if anything happens, it's not my responsibility, not my agent's responsibility, and not the responsibility of anyone under the board of it. All right. Okay. This is if you're going to add on any additional addendum to this agreement. I'm not. And this right here just says if it's built before 1977, we're going to include a lead-based paint addendum. You don't really need that until it's time to sell because the lead-based paint addendum is signed by both the buyer and seller. There's no buyer at this point, so there's no need for a lead-based paint addendum. This is that compensation we were talking about again. And you see, I check off other because I don't like a percentage of the rent due each period. I don't like a percentage of the gross lease value, and I don't like a percentage of first month's rent because the first month's rent is prorated, my percentage shrinks. So give me 1 month rent free and clear. I will split it with the subagent if there is. And right here, as far as when it's due, I like to just make everything dumb clear. So commission due at walkthrough. When the tenant comes and exchanges cash for keys, that is the same day I want my check. So at walkthrough is where I'll have whoever told an escrow cut a check to the investment property guru. Just like on a sale agreement, within 90 days of this contract between me and the seller or me and the landlord becoming either terminated or expired, if anyone from the past comes back to see it within 90 days and buys it, I'm still owed my commission, whether I personally did it or not. Outside of 90 days, I'm not owed a commission. This right here is going to be your payment to sub-agents. And as you see it 3 times, because it's a tenant's agent, which is like a buyer's agent, no brokerage relationship, which is they just met, did this deal out the gate. And right here, transaction brokers, which is what we are. So everybody, I give them the same amount. I give them the whole half a month. I just keep it fair. I minimize the amount of reasons I have to argue with people. So if I'm trying to make more than somebody else, it's the reason to argue. I don't want it. Just the same, early termination. If you cancel this agreement or fire me, that's fine. I will go. I don't want anything from you. I don't charge anything. You are welcome to. This is the dispute resolution again. If there's a disagreement, right here, first thing, it will be mediated first. Then they go to arbitration. Then we'll go to the whole courthouse. Everyone signs off, the owner, you, the listing agent, and you, the broker. Right here, it just makes it clear we are transaction brokers, meaning we're authorized to work with the buyer and seller, but our loyalty lies with the transaction. We do what's best to make sure this deal closes and everyone does their part. That's it. The additional clauses, like I covered before, if anything extra you want to add to this agreement, you put it here. Make sure they sign, date, the tax ID, or their social, if it's obviously because it's a business and we're producing monthly income for them. So you put it here, and you date, you sign, your phone number, the company address, and your email address. And remember, make sure you notate how you gave them a copy so they cannot say you did not give them a copy. I gave you a copy on January 1st. I handed it to you. All right. And the bottom of every single page has an initial box. That is the gist of how I fill out a listing agreement for sale and a rental. I'm going to actually find an attorney to go more in depth on this and do a better class. But does anyone have any questions on any of that before I go and see you guys next week? I feel good about it. All right, cool. So I will see you guys next Thursday. And I'm here if anyone has any questions. And I'm going to get this video put up on YouTube ASAP just so you guys can revisit it for any reason. And if you want to go over anything one-on-one, give me a call and it will be recorded just for you. I won't put everything on Zoom, obviously, but I'm here for you. All right, take care.